Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Core Truth. I'm your host, Peter Hernandez, and today I have Michelle Nissani, coach and mentor at Douglas Elliman for all of the new agents and talent that we bring into the firm. We have a
Hi, Pete.
really exciting conversation today because I think it was 2 years ago, Michelle, or was it 2.5 years ago, maybe?
Maybe about 2.5 years ago, I think.
Michelle, being one of our top agents in Beverly Hills, came to us and said, you know what, I really think I want to train and coach and mentor agents. And we said, well, great idea. Why don't you put together a business plan for us as to what you would do and how you'd be compensated and how you would help agents and what kind of curriculum you'd put together and all that. And that is something we do with a lot of people with good ideas. And generally, nobody comes back to us with anything. You know, the idea of writing a business plan usually throws most people off. But within like 2 days, Michelle is back with this very detailed business plan. It was way more than a page. And we said, wow, she has really put some thought into this. Let's go with it. And the results have been unbelievable because in this industry, new agents, I think, what do you think? Typically, like maybe a 10% success rate. Like if 10 agents enter the business, maybe one will make it.
Yeah, I think that's the industry standard here in California.
Yeah, and when we mean make it, actually, have an income to live in the city of Los Angeles, to have a, consistent flow of business, not just be starving every month waiting for another deal. I mean, someone that really gets it. So Michelle put together this program, and I think, Michelle, your success rate is like 35%. I mean, you've almost tripled the success rate.
Yeah, we've actually had really good numbers. I think this year alone, I've trained 65 agents. We have 28 currently in the program. 8 of those agents have done deals this year so far, and there's a lot more in the pipeline. And, of those agents that I've trained, I think 4 or 5 of them are going to go on to make, the 250, plus mark. Some of them are already there. It's been incredibly successful.
This has been just fabulous for the company because, for most companies, when an agent enters the business, they're given a desk, a phone, and said, go make it happen. And that's about it, with zero instructions. When you get your real estate license, they don't really teach you the business, do they? You just learn the legalities of it.
I've been doing this now for so long that it was at the very beginning of this, it was hard to remember what it was like being brand new. And I think I came to the business from a different perspective because I was an interior architect. And so I understood construction. I understood what it took to take a property from not looking great to looking great. And I invested. And that's how I got my legs in the business and thought, actually, I really like the selling part of this too. And I want to focus on that. And so I had a lot of knowledge coming into the business about the process of selling because I'd already bought and sold, 5 or 6 homes before I even got my license. And so for me, I had a very different entry in, whereas most agents haven't bought their first home, particularly now, we're now in 2023 when homes are 10 times the price as when I got into the market. And so, the youngsters getting in have not bought a home, have not sold a home, have no kind of insight. And the real estate exam does not prepare you even how to write a contract. And the contracts change every year. So, it's not only that you have to keep up with all the changes, but you have to know the basis. And it was shocking to me. That was the biggest eye opener to me about how little they actually understood about being able to do a transaction.
Yeah. We don't really learn that to pass the test. We learn a lot of very important things about fiduciary relationships and client care and standards of service and ethics and all that. But the actual practice of the business, to build a business, to sell a home, to what do you say to a client, to all those things, that's what you do. And what makes you uniquely talented and right for this job is that your real estate career has been extremely successful. But what makes it even more, I think, relevant and beneficial to the agents that are in your program, Michelle, is that you'll not only know how to sell residential, but you know how to sell commercial and investment properties as well. So that makes you a much better, I think, mentor and instructor because not only can you instruct and teach and train on all those different skill sets, but you also can maybe help agents identify where they should put their efforts based on their personalities and their clients and what they do.
Right. Exactly, because that different people come to me, and I've got one girl right now, she's putting an offer in, actually she put an offer in yesterday, we're going through negotiations, and she's really working with developers and it suits her personality. She gets the numbers, she understands the numbers, and those are the conversations we've had with her. And then on the other side of the scale, there's the agents that are strictly door knocking and they're farming. And I've done that, that's how I began in my career, is knocking on doors in the Beverly Hills post office for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And so understanding like each different aspect of how you can build a business, and helping them identify what works for them. Mm-hmm. And I went through this too. I went through these processes of, I really tried door knocking, but at the end of the day, what really worked for me was talking to people I know on an intimate level. Right. I wasn't great at parties. I'm not great at big networking events. I was shy at the door, but if I'm at a small dinner party, I'm on fire. Yeah. And it's really getting to understand for each individual, what does that mean? Right. What works for them and what doesn't work for them. And then you can see people trying different things. And you're like, great, but this is what really works for you. So focus on that. And having somebody help you stay on track is because there's so many options and there's so many different things you could be doing to generate business. But what is it that's going to work for you, I think is important very early on to identify.
Right. Well, there's never a shortage of people that want to join Douglas Elliman as new agents and be part of your program. But for you and for the time you invest and your commitment to these agents, it's really important to you to kind of qualify them during the interview.
Right.
What are the traits that you notice and what are you looking for? In other words, what makes successful agents different in your opinion?
Well, one of the first questions I ask an agent on the phone is, what's your plan? And I'll get two different answers. The first answer is, well, that's what I'm hiring you for, right? And then the other one is, well, I've thought about this and I'm going to try this. I've got this social sphere. I've got, this is an area I've known for a million years. They come from different perspectives, but they've actually given it thought. And it's kind of like what you said at the beginning. A lot of people don't want to put a business plan together. A lot of people don't want to try and plan things. They want somebody else to do it for them. And that's not going to generate success. You've got to have some level of motivation to do this yourself. And your mentor is your support, your cheerleader, help with direction, but they're not the one doing it. What I'm looking for is somebody who wants to do it. They want to learn how to fish, not to be given the fish. That's really what I'm looking for. And the other part of it is the understanding, the financial aspect. The understanding this takes time. And generating any business is going to take time. So you need a plan in place and you need the finances to support that. And if you don't have those two things, you're already starting off. I mean, it's so hard to make it in business, in any business, but particularly real estate in California, that you've got to start off with an edge. You've got to start off with everything going right, everything for you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's not to say you can't make it without the finances in place, but you've got to have a plan and you've got to have the drive, and you can't have, this isn't a B plan, or this isn't an additional stream of income. I mean, I've heard that quite a few times. This is not a part-time job. Yeah. I still work 10 or 12 hours a day.
Yeah, I know you do. It's interesting. I mean, we've seen people come in that have the sphere, have the law degrees, mm-hmm. have had all this stuff, and they just flop. Right. And we've also seen people come in that have nothing going for them. They may even be too young or too old, but they just come in and they make it happen.
Right.
What's the difference?
I think it comes down to that drive. I mean, there was one agent, it was just when the pandemic started. He just got his license here in California, literally moved from Chicago and did not know a single soul in California, was unable to do any of the traditional things. He wasn't able to go to the doors. He wasn't able to do door knocking. He wasn't able to do cold calling. He wasn't able to, socialize. We couldn't even show property at the beginning of the pandemic. And I said, there's only one thing you can do, is get on the phone. And he got on the phone. He did what was needed to do to to do the business. You know, I set a schedule out for every agent, and it's the same schedule. It has the same things in: prospect, set appointments. If you don't have an appointment, set more, do more prospecting.
Right.
Over lunch, work on your listing presentation, read your forms, work on your buyer's presentation. And in the, at the end of the day, you're working on your marketing and all the follow-up calls and emails. And then in between that, you're going to have to run an escrow when you actually get into escrow. That's your schedule day in, day out, 6 days a week, 5 days a week, however long you want to work. And most of the agents, when I see their schedule come back, when they've refined it to their day-to-day, they've taken out half of that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. You've got to do all of it.
Do you find that agents have a tendency to renegotiate? Like they say, I'll do this, I'll do that, and then they start renegotiating with themselves?
Yeah, or they second guess. Or I think there's just a general underestimation of what it actually takes. I think that's the biggest key to a successful agent is they don't underestimate what it takes. Right. When you think of like there's 280 contracts, just from the contract perspective alone, there's 280 contracts. If you don't start reading them in your first year, you're at such a deficit, because an agent like myself, who's been in the industry, 20 plus years, I know those contracts backwards and forwards. And when you're in negotiation with somebody who knows how to do this and somebody who doesn't, I can sniff out a new agent or somebody who's not very good easily, and I can use it to my client's advantage. So it's your ethical duty to be, to really get up to speed with what needs to be learned. And that takes, that's a chunk of time, so you've got to get up to speed where just the average agent is at to be able to even be in business. Right. So the recognition of that from the start off, and the people who have a plan and actually do the work that's not necessary to find, in the day, but they understand it's necessary over time. That's the key, I think.
So what are the sub-levels of agents? We've kind of described the agent that we are pretty confident is going to make it. Now, what are the different levels?
Well, I think there's always going to be that agent that makes, 100,000 and is perfectly happy doing that. They sell a couple. I mean, in California, that is a couple of sales. So that's not somebody I would think of as a really successful agent, because I think it takes about 100 deals to really understand the business. And so if you're only doing a couple of deals a year, you're never going to get to that level. But at the same time, it's a good income, right? I mean, it's not bad. To survive in California, I'm not sure it's enough, but there's always going to be that level of agent, And then there's the agent that I think, year in, year out, they're making 250,000. And those are, a good, probably 20% of our industry, 10% even maybe. And then you have the top, you have the true stars who are going to go on to make, 500,000 plus, $1 million plus. And, and those are the true stars at the end of the day. I think that's kind of where the levels end.
How much do you think $1 Million Listing the TV show has either helped or hurt, our industry in terms of perception of the business?
I think I mean, it made me laugh that one agent came in and she's like, "Oh my God, this is so hard." And I was like, well, when you're thinking that you sell a $3 million house and you make $75,000 in gross commission, would you really anticipate that it's easy? That was my first, like nobody's giving you a paycheck on that level if it's going to be something that anybody and everybody can do. That is the reality, although it's not necessarily the perception. Mm-hmm. And then she actually said, "It's not like it is on TV, is it?" I laughed. I mean, I'm like, no, those shows are they're for entertainment. They're not really about what the business is about. And I think before I started this, I began to feel like, because after you've done hundreds of deals, you begin to feel like there's a system. Mm-hmm. It's easy. Why am I getting paid this much money? And then when you start to work with people who are brand new, you recognize how much knowledge you actually have that serves the client. Mm-hmm. And, getting to that place, I don't think is necessarily portrayed by the TV shows and what that really looks like.
So right now, one would say is one of the most unusual, toughest markets we've ever been in.
For sure.
Yeah. And I would say that, agents right now, is it a good time for an agent to enter the business, I guess would be one question. And the other question I would ask you in the same breath would be, what do agents need to work on right now during this time?
Well, I mean, I come from a very positive perspective on that. It's kind of like, we are in the hardest market. I would say I'm working twice as hard to make the same amount of money as I would have made, a few years ago. Inventory is incredibly tight because of circumstances we can't control. But what I know about the market, when I came into this business, the market was really low because there was an earthquake, the Northridge earthquake, and it took a while for that to recover. And there was so much inventory, right? So that was like, this could be a really bad time to get into the market because there's so much inventory and there's not enough buyers. Nobody wants to live here, right? Believe it or not. And then you have 2008, another really difficult time in our industry. That was one of my biggest years in terms of sales. And now we've got this market. I think in any market, the factors of why people move still exist. People get married, people have children, people get divorced, people pass away, people get great jobs. All of those things continue to happen. So regardless of how bad the market is perceived in the media or how hard it actually is, that's never going to change wherever we are. So get in now if you want to do it, but commit. And I think what agents need to work on is, two things. It's, as you said, building a business and generating, and learning how to do the business. One is about generating business, generating leads, generating people that you can find to help buy and sell. And then the other one is, well, how do I actually do this? How do I sell a house? How do I help somebody buy a house? How do I negotiate? How do I write the contract? You've got to have that's the area you've got to get up to speed on. And I think that does take time to learn, and there's no rushing it. I had one agent come to me and they said, I just need you to condense everything into like a month's program. I'm like, that's not possible. Like, your growth through this, the minute you start knocking on doors, the first month, it's not about if you're even going to find somebody who's going to do business with you. It's about getting over your fear of actually even being at that door. And then it's understanding, you hear what they say, you hear what you say. How did that work? And then if you come home and do the homework and figure out, okay, what did I say that worked? What did I say that felt awkward? Where could I have taken the conversation if I'd have stayed just a couple more seconds at that door? A smile goes a long way. When you're at the door, that was one thing that I really learned. I have a serious resting face, but you put a smile on and people respond in a different way. You go to the door with confidence that people will respond in a different way. If you're at coffee with somebody and you're really interested in them and you're asking questions and you're connecting, that's something that takes time to understand how to do and be comfortable doing. So that part it's all the learning process. And I think that's what they need to work on.
Right. Do you see like common shortcomings agents have that if we could pinpoint them, they could avoid them and possibly shortcut their progress?
I think one of the biggest things is you have to come from a place of service. I think that's huge. I think nobody wants to be sold. I don't want to go into a clothes shop and have a salesperson selling me just so that they make a commission. And I think that's every buyer and seller's fear. Are they just trying to make a commission? They're in it for themselves. Right. You genuinely, and people can tell when you're faking it, you genuinely have to care about people and want the best for them. And in the long term, that really works, because if you really do care and you do a really great job for somebody and you're holding their best interests at heart, and sometimes a deal has to, you're in escrow and you figure out some things, and even the client wants to buy the house, but you're like, look, these are the things that are wrong with it. Are you sure? When you have those kind of conversations, it builds trust. And they're going to then understand you are on their side and you're looking out for them. And I think that's our job. That's actually what makes our business strong in the long run, because when people feel like you've been trustworthy, you've looked out for them, you've done a great job for them, you're going to get referrals. That's right. And at the end of the day, that's what this business is about, is generating the leads that, in your 20th year in this career, that you're going to, be able to live off. And I think the shortcoming is it's an underestimation of how much work it takes and short-sightedness. You need to be thinking long-term, not short-term.
Right. It's funny you say that. It just reminds me that most successful agents, and I'm sure you can relate to this, have somewhere between 5 and 10 repeat customers.
Yes.
That represent anywhere from 30 to 70% of their business. And they continually give them referrals and make recommendations. How do you build that group of clients, and how do you maintain it in your opinion?
For me personally, I made a list of everybody I knew, and my focus was to find the people that I was around that were going to support me, that were there to help me as much as I am to help them. Mm-hmm. And we're willing to do that, because some people that they're not going to be the referring type of people. They're just not going to ever refer somebody. Even if they love you, they're not going to do it. Some of your people that are never going to do business with you because they want to keep friendship and business separate. But then there's those other people that want to see the best for you in the same way that you want to see the best for them. And that's the great thing about having that attitude in the first place. It does come back. You surround yourself. If you're looking to be of service, you're going to surround yourself by like-minded people. And so I've focused on finding, who is going to do multiple business. So it's going to be somebody from the investment side, which was already my natural progression anyway. I came from an investor's mindset. I came from this enjoying that part of the business and creating that niche of expertise. Mm-hmm. And so, it was a focus. And I think that's where it's not about trying to do everything. It's about focusing on the things that you enjoy, that you like. And so that was what I did. I looked for the people who are going to be able to refer me. So the attorneys in my network, or just friends who were very social, who would have a big network. Mm-hmm. And it was as simple as, going for a walk in the park with a couple of people and saying, hey, I want to do 50 deals this year. And I'd love you to be a part of that and help me. And there's going to be people that say yes, and there's people going to say yes and actually help you, Wow. And so it's about pinpointing those people.
I love it.
And that's really, those people have supported me, and I go out of my way to do everything I can for those people too.
One thing I know, I don't care what level you're at and how good you are. Everyone has slumps. Everyone has moments, right, in their career where
I've had a few.
Well, I know where they're struggling, and I guess for the new agent, how long should they hang in there?
Well, I think it depends. I think if this is your A plan and you're really suited to business and you've had a little bit of success, and then you for whatever reason, life hits you hard for a moment, or you just get into your head, how am I ever going to make this work? I haven't had a sale. I'm never going to sell another house. I mean, those are fears I think almost every agent has. I know I've had them. If you get in a moment, or you're overtired, or you had a client conversation that didn't go well, you do get into your head about those things. So you have to recognize, is it a slump because of just the moment? And, it's always going to end. You're always going to find another way, right? So, things go down, things go up. That's the very nature of things. So it's recognizing that and being able to get through it. But then on the other hand, if it's the agent that really isn't suited to this business, an agent that doesn't have great people skills, that doesn't have the ability to connect, that really doesn't understand the business or, human psychology, you're going to really struggle in this business. To that agent, I would say everybody has a skill set. Go and find something to do that works for your skill set. Real estate isn't for everybody. There's a skill set that you need in real estate. And if you don't have it, you're going to struggle. So you've got to identify where the struggle is, I think.
I absolutely agree with you on that. What makes one, and I think we've kind of covered this, but is there anything else you want to add to what makes one suited to being in real estate, in your opinion? I mean, we've talked about drive for sure, but is there any other factors?
Well, I think, as we said, it's coming from a place of service. I think that's key. Commitment. I think you've got to be really committed to real estate, or any business. I don't think real estate is alone when we talk about that. I think in any business that you're going to set up, you've got to do everything it takes to make it in that business. So you've got to identify what is it that you're going to have to do, right? And if somebody's telling you need to do this, 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 and this, are you the person that's doing it, or are you the person that just takes one thing off that list?
Mhm.
And so the person that takes one thing off that list as opposed to doing everything isn't going to be the one suited to this business. The person looking for somebody else to give them answers isn't going to be suited to this business. This business is about sorting out problems. It's actually about already understanding what problems could happen, identifying them, and figuring out how they can be solved before they even become issues, right?
Right.
So you've got to have that level of understanding of the business. So at the very beginning, your job is to really get to grips with what this business is about.
Right.
And if that's not your passion, if that's not your journey, then go and find what is, because you do have to work really hard to get going.
I don't know if anybody listening has been watching I think it's either Netflix or Apple, or it might even be Hulu actually.
Right.
It's called The Bear, and it's about this
Oh, it's
restaurant that
amazing.
opens,
Yeah.
and it's an amazing story. And I think if you could apply what they go through
To real estate.
to real estate, I think it's almost identical. It kind of reminds me of Telus Properties in a lot of ways, the downs, the ins, the outs, the partners, this, that, everything that goes on in a relationship like that. It's a great little tutorial on how to be in business.
Well, and also learning how to have those relationships, right? You've got to
Right.
really, that person that's going to hang in there, and try and get clients out of their own way. I mean, you've got to be so firm in yourself of the direction that you need to lead people in. You have to be a leader in this business, because you have to lead the agent on the other side. You have to lead the clients on the other side. You have to lead your own clients to get them to the goal that they're setting. It's not about getting them to your goal. It's about getting them to their own goals. But sometimes we all get in our own way. So you have to be the leader as the agent. And so I think that's where you have to understand in your group of people that in your networking and everything you do, you have to be the one to lead. And so those are the people that are really suited to real estate.
When people sign up for your program, I'm sure they're wondering, and I don't know if they asked the question, but how long should they expect for their first sale?
Well, I always give a couple of answers to that one. It could happen today, tomorrow. I have had agents that come in and they make sales within their first 3 months. In fact, I've had one agent that's actually done all 3 sales in 3 months. In our mentorship, we do 3 transactions together. And then they go on to continued success. And then I have other agents that are working on it for 2 years. And the reason, and then, you have to begin to think, okay, if you haven't made a sale in 2 years, why? Right? Now, if the answer is, I have been mailing consistently for, 3 times a month, and that's been my marketing, and I've been outdoor knocking, I understand that method of generating business really does take time, because it does take 18 months for you even to get name recognition when you're mailing. And it takes that same amount of time to get name recognition when you're door knocking. But at some point within that 2-year period, you should be seeing the fruits of your labor, anywhere from 18 months to 2 years. And so then it's about, what are you saying? What are you saying at the door? So I think 2 years is really the cutoff. If you haven't made at least a couple of sales within the first 2 years, there is a problem. But I would give it a good 18 months to 2 years, because some methods of generating leads are going to be slower than others.
I think you would have given up on me. I am dead serious. It took me 10 years.
Oh, wow.
To figure it out. My first 10 years of the business, it was a consistent 30,000 a year.
Oh, I just mean to make sales.
But stay with me on this. I was a piss poor realtor. In a sense. I think I did a good job for I was like those agents that do a good job when they're in a deal,
right?
But they don't have the maybe the ambition or the drive to be a prospector and to grow a business.
Right.
And I got to tell you that, 10 years in, my credit cards were maxed. I was really not in a great place mentally. But that's what it was like. I hit a bottom.
Right.
And I remember that moment where I just said, I am sick and tired of this.
Right.
And I just revamped everything. And I was first in, last out. I changed my wardrobe, just changed everything about myself to be a player and to really get successful in this business. But I would have to say that the main thing was I couldn't take unplanned days off. I couldn't just skip out for a long lunch. I couldn't arrive to work late. You know what I mean? I had to be like really, really responsible and really work hard like it was my own business.
Right.
You know, how can you affect that change in a person, or does it have to come from within like it did with me? Because I'm not sure anybody did anything or said anything to me that made me change, but
I don't think
we try to motivate people all the time, don't we, Michelle?
Right.
And it's so interesting. Like I'll have someone talk to me about this and tell me if this is your experience. I'll have someone come to me and say, Peter, what should I do? And we'll sit down and we'll craft out a plan. And we'll come up with the 5
I know where you're going with this.
5 action items with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I won't hear from them, hide or hair. And then I'll run into this agent and I'll go, how's the plan going?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say, well, I haven't started yet. I'm still thinking about what, you know what I mean? Or they'll have some reason. Or the other person that really becomes successful comes back to me almost 2 days later and says, okay, I've accomplished everything. What do I do now?
Right.
And there's such a difference between that person and the other person that's still analyzing it, thinking about it, or maybe just procrastinating getting started.
Right.
I mean, can we?
And I can relate to that.
Can we motivate those people to get off their butts and get going, or what do we do?
I think it has to come to, I don't necessarily think you have to go to a bottom, although I think that is a big driving force, obviously. But I do think you have to recognize it. And so I think that's where the help comes in. You can recognize what somebody's doing. So for instance, right now, I'm also building my own business. I've spent a couple of years on this mentorship, and I want to be the type of mentor who is in this business, who is selling in this business. So I can have, that experience to be able to share with the people that I mentor. I think that's super important.
Yeah.
And it's been incredibly challenging for me to fit in, because the mentorship is really a full-time gig. I mean, I'm working a good 8-10 hours every single day.
I know you are.
And I feel like I'm a doctor on call 24/7, although I try not to be. But I'm also now trying to put in things in place that I can generate my own business. Not that that's gone away, but it's mainly from those referrals. I'm not doing much to output to try and generate, right? I'm just receiving. And so, I tell my agents, I'm in the exact same position as you are. I've hired a coach to help me see what I'm doing. It's like, so she actually now has my calendar. She sees what I'm doing. It's a level of accountability because I really want it. I really want to grow, right? And that's the part about the mentorship that really excites me, is I love to watch people grow. And I'm fascinated by this exact question. How do you motivate not only yourself, but other people to do this? And I had a coaching call yesterday, and she said, Michelle, you said you were going to do this, this, and this, and you haven't done those things yet. So what are you actually going to commit to? And I said, well, and she had these ideas and they weren't sitting with me, right? I was saying, yeah, but really it wasn't something I was going to do. And I actually then opened up to her and said, I'm not going to do that, but I like the idea, but let's figure out what it is what I will do.
Yeah.
And I've already done what she's asked me to do. And I think it's having somebody to recognize, that's the part. It's like you can.
Well, that just shows you how important the student is in the process. Like the mentor just can't tell people what to do, or the student just can't show up and just wait for the pearls of wisdom. They've got to bring something to the party.
Yes. And that's what I was saying. The successful one isn't looking for me to do it. They're bringing me something I can talk about.
Right.
I've got a girl I'm going to speak to later on this afternoon. She's like, Michelle, I've been, working with 3 different buyers for the last 3 months, and they've suddenly gone quiet on me. I don't get it. I don't know what's going on. Can we have a call so I can tell you what's happened so far, and if you can guide me through the situation? Like, if somebody comes to me with that's something I can help them solve. Right now, I don't know if the outcome's going to be in their favor or out of their favor, but either way, I can help them move on with that client or without that client and finding new ones. So that's what I'm looking for, that constant feedback and the willingness to actually make some change.
Even if they say, I'm not willing to do that, Michelle, let's find something I'm willing to do. That would be such a positive conversation.
It was freeing for me, because up until that point, and this is a relatively new coach, up until that point, I hadn't felt comfortable enough to say no. Like, I'm not doing that because that doesn't work for me, right? I didn't have that comfort. And then suddenly yesterday I was like, okay, I can't do this part, but I can do something else. Like, I like the idea. What can we figure out?
Right.
And I think when you can gain that relationship with your mentor, I think it's really going to drive you. But the driving part, the wanting it, has got to come from you, because unless you want it, you're not going to get up in the morning early. You're not going to put in 10 hours a day. You're not going to do the grind. I think people don't understand how much of a grind any business is.
That's right.
There's a lot, we talk about having a lot of passion for what we do, but we don't talk about behind that passion, that may be for 10% of the activities that we do in a day. Yeah. The other 90% is total grind.
It's like shoveling dirt. I know.
It's like shoveling dirt, but you've got to do it. You have to do it. Yeah.
I think one problem, I think that agents deal with, and I'd love you to touch on this a little bit, is this concept of they want to guarantee if they go to an open house, they're going to get a sale, or if they knock on a door, they're going to, get this or get that. And if it doesn't happen, then it just becomes open houses don't work, door knocking doesn't work. And you have to really have an abundant mindset. You really have to believe there's an opportunity every day you wake up. There could be an opportunity with the guy delivering your FedEx package. There could be an opportunity, sitting inside a class with you. There's something will come up everywhere if your head's in the right space. So how important, and let's end on this, and it is an abundant mindset in your opinion?
I think it's the key to success. I mean, and I've struggled with this myself. It's like, you need the money, you need the sale, you need something to happen. And you're so focused on that and why it's not happening, and you're pushing and you're pulling, and yet when you relax and you're gonna everything's gonna be okay. Mm-hmm. Everything is okay. It all works out. And I think, a coach said to me, look, it's all made up. How we live in our head is of our own manufacturing, right? So in a certain situation, you can look at it from a negative perspective, or you can look at it from a positive perspective. Mm-hmm. How you look at things is going to impact how you live on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. And if you show up in fear, when you're going to talk to somebody, people are going to get that essence from you. Mm-hmm. And that's not going to attract business to you. If you turn up with joy, enthusiasm, positivity, that is going to attract people to you. And understanding that life is a journey, and whatever happens to you, whether it's good or bad, is going to have an impact on you and change you. And hopefully, if you do the work right, that's for the good. But if you start out from thinking, oh, I'm never going to make this work, I've definitely had these doubts. I'm never going to make another sale. How am I ever going to put food on the table? There's definitely been those parts in my timeline over the last 20 odd years, mm-hmm. And you've got to pull yourself out of that, mm-hmm. or surround yourself with people that can knock you on the head and say, hey, you've got to get out of this headspace. And so I think that's another part, is having a really good group of people around you who can say, hey, Michelle, remember how good you were at this, and this? Mm-hmm. And that's what I do try and be for the mentees, because it is hard. It is a struggle. And I don't think anybody that's gone through the program would say this is easy by any stretch of the imagination. However easy it might look on TV, where there's deals drop in your laps, you do have those moments, but still putting them together is hard. It is. And, having somebody to support you and keep saying, there's enough business. It's like you said earlier, is this a good time to get into the business? It's always a good time. There's always opportunity, and really understanding there's opportunity everywhere. And one of the biggest things I hear from people, I've been cold calling for 3 months. It's not working. And my response is, how do you know? Because you're putting stuff out there. You're asking people to do business with you. You're asking for the business. You're trying to find out. Once you've put that phone down, right now, they have no desire to buy a house. But unbeknownst to you, though, in a week's time, they just got a great job offer. And now they're moving up to New York. And they've got to sell in order to be able to buy in New York. Now, because you've called them, because you've been repetitively calling, because your brand and your name is in front of them, they call you. But you wouldn't know that when you're saying in that first 3 months it's not working, because all of that has to go on behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. And I had an agent who was at the door who's, he's an agent that's been in the business for 12 years in a different state. And, he's going through that. I've been door knocking for 9 months and, I've not got any business from it. It's not working. And, I said to him, well, I had a call from, somebody who door knocked. It was actually an agent in our office. You door knocked the neighbor. And, he felt so compelled after the conversation that he wanted somebody in management to know how great you were at the door. Now, unless that person had spoken to their neighbor and their neighbor had spoken to me and I'd spoken to you, you wouldn't know that that was what you left that person with. But the fact that you left that person with that, and you're leaving 50 people every day with that, or 150 people every single week with that feeling, that is going to bring you business. You just don't know when. So it is working, but it's working behind the scenes that you don't know about.
That's
so
right.
You just got to keep doing it. And that's where the abundant mindset, I think when you have that abundant mindset where, there is opportunity everywhere, and if you keep working at something consistently, and I think that's the biggest thing, be consistent. It's not good enough just to have the mindset. You've got to do the work. But if you do it with the right attitude, it's going to work.
Well, Michelle, this has been a very, very valuable conversation. So thank you so much for joining me on The Core Truth. And thank you, everybody, for listening to The Core Truth and joining us again. We have another one planned coming up, so hang in there for the next one. Michelle, you've just done a great job with our program. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.